It is still
Tuesday.
Tuesday. I feel like we almost got synchronized. I feel like we almost did that.
Almost.
Good day, evening, nighttime, week, month to you all, our lovely, lovely listeners. Why are you laughing at that?
Year, decade, millennia.
Millennia, time, happy time, good time, good time. Speaking of time and timing and perfection and perfectionism and baking and baked
And
goods
nurturing.
and caring and layers and sprinkles and chocolate and shoes. Welcome to this one. If you are hungry, please go and eat something. Or eat at the same time. It's fine. We won't hear you. Craig Taylor, Bake Daddy, who's been on the Food Network, who makes the most incredibly thoughtful cakes and has a journey and a story to match, is going to be joining us today. If you are the type of person that kind of ever wants to just get into that kitchen of life, I'm going to try and run with this. Just hear me out. You want to get into the kitchen of life and find new tools and ingredients and put them together. And I love that you're trying to hold a straight face, Raquelle, but I think I'm doing well here. I'm letting go of my need for perfection, which we all know just doesn't exist. And you want to try and stir things up in your world. This is actually the episode for you, because Craig went from one totally random other thing to another totally random other thing, and the combination is just divine.
I think you baked in all of the topics.
Oh my gosh. I could see your brain turning, and that was so worth it. Oh, human beings of planet Earth, enjoy Craig Taylor, Bake Daddy, our friend. Good. What was that face, Raquelle? You put that tongue back in your mouth.
It's cake day.
It's cake day. It's cake day with Bake Daddy, my favorite cake baker. There are going to be so many puns. There's so many layers to this, right? We have so many ingredients for you. I want to tell you about one of my new friends and one of my favorite people who I have to say, I have to shout out to G Love, an amazing friend of mine who introduced me to Craig. And the first time I met Craig was when I walked into G's place because he said we were going to go for dinner. And I was like, okay. And it was like the week of my birthday, and he was trying to coordinate when I could come over. And I was like, I'm really busy. I'm very busy and important, which is like apparently the thing that I say to everybody all the time. Don't know why. I'm super chill. But I arrived and I got in the door and I heard other voices, and I was like, well, I don't know this. Like maybe G's having like a small dinner, but I'm the one that's invited. It was very confusing. I arrived.
It's my birthday.
Yeah, exactly. I arrived and Craig like came out from around the corner, and I was just like, oh, G's got another friend. We're all going to dinner. Okay, fine. And he was like, hello. And I was like, oh, hi, I'm Christina. And he was like, I know. And I was like, okay, that's alarm number one. But and then I looked down, and of course, me being like the least observant person in the world, had totally missed the most magnificent cake I have ever seen in my life. And I'm sorry for all of the people who've gotten married and all of these things and have other celebratory cakes. Not true. My cake was better than all of your cakes. And Craig made that cake a reality. Craig has been a professional cake curator since March 2017, the day after his father passed away. Having worked for, was it over like 20 years in the casino world?
Over 25, yeah.
Over 25 in the casino world. His world upended with his father's passing. He set himself a mission the very next day to make a peppermint bark cheesecake for one of his closest friends' birthdays. He quickly learned that Peppermint bark was out of season, nowhere to be found. So he spent the day running from store to store in search of all these ingredients that he'd need to make it from scratch. And I will talk about the details of why that actually happened and how that was a really important moment for you. But Craig has since been selected as one of the 10 contestants on the Food Network's Great Chocolate Showdown. Is a highly spiritual, we're going to get into like all the existential side of things person.
Oh, dear.
A very kind human being, and continues to make these extraordinarily highly customized baked goods with an unparalleled attention to detail. And I will give you, if you go onto my Instagram at myChristinaLau, you will see, or you go onto Bake Daddy's Instagram, you will see the level of detail that he put into this cake. It was and G had given him references, and then Craig had taken the time to not only listen to this podcast and create and select his favorite quotes to put onto the podcast, onto the cake, which is now on the podcast. It's like we're getting really super meta. And not only that, he knew me. He knew so much about me to the point where every single aspect of that cake had a story. And that is how I would like to introduce my friend Craig to you all. Welcome, Craig.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. You're making me blush.
Good. I'm glad. You're worth it. So let's start from the start, because I think that it's really important to tell the story of the history of this cake baking. Tell us about that moment, because you told me this story and it was so stunning. So, don't mess it up.
I mean, it certainly obviously wasn't planned. It was my father's passing. But I had planned to make this cake for one of my closest girlfriends the following day, and I was committed to still doing that, not knowing all of the other benefits that I would perceive from doing so, not kind of understanding the psychology behind baking, but later learning that there is quite a psychology behind it. And I was committed to doing that, and then when I realized the peppermint bark it's not sold in March, it's only sold at Christmas, I'm like, I can do this, I'll do it on my own. So I made light peppermint bark and white peppermint bark from scratch, and I probably got the cake to her at maybe 11:58 p.m. But I did it and I got it there. And since then, I don't know, I realized that that's what really gives me joy. It takes me away from everything else. And then I decided, well, it's my father's celebration of life. I'm going to do all of the baking for that. So here I was up for a couple of days doing all the baking, but realizing that it's really the altruistic part of it that probably excites me, motivates me the most, because to see that look on somebody's face when you've made something and you know how much they're enjoying it or loving it, and they're just like happy, it's like through their eyes. That's why I bake. That's why I continue to do what I do. And I want to share that with more people. I want to see more joy on more people's faces, really.
I have a theory, and I wonder what your thoughts are on this. When we started, when the pandemic started itself, everyone wanted to bake. Everyone wanted sourdough. What is that thing? The rising yeast thing? The starter. Okay. So everyone wanted these things, and it just became this seemingly inexplicable craze. However, I was talking to a few people, and someone said to me, made a really great point. I think it was Matt. He said, it's very scientific. When you get all of the ingredients into in this very particular way, you can get the outcome you desire if you follow the recipe. Now, cooking is very different to baking. Cooking, you throw in a thing, like if you're my mom, you have no idea what you've just done. It's just genius every time, but she doesn't write down the recipes. With baking, you can't just throw things in. You are very precise. And I wonder, and this is what I think I'm going to ask you, whether or not it's because you then have a semblance of control, because you know that if A plus B happens, you will get C. And when you had such an impactful, great loss, you were driven in a way to do something. And I know that you were already an incredible baker, but was there an element of like, do you think that's just me making that up in my mind? Is that like, how does that feel for you?
I think for me, it's understanding that there is control, because that's what motivated me. I mean, I remember being young, and my mom was a fantastic baker, but you would go to a certain friend's house, and their mom's cookies were always perfectly shaped, perfectly baked, and you would go home and you try it. Of course, you're putting margarine instead of butter and doing things like that, and yours were always flat and spread out, and you're like, why can't mine be like that? And
Right.
once you understand that, yes, there is a recipe, and when you follow it and you have your ingredients at the right temperature, etc., you can have a certain outcome. So that is part of the challenge, excitement of getting it right. Perfection doesn't exist, so as close to perfect as possible.
Yeah.
But I think that's only the first part of it, because once you have the recipe and that control part, then we have to decorate, which gives you the freedom and the artistic side and the ability to, you can throw a little bit of this on or that in sort of like the cooking sense. But then it's like, what's your desired outcome for the look of what you've just worked so hard to create perfectly, or so I like the elements of both artistic and scientific.
Yeah. That's a good point. The artistic side.
Can you take us back a little bit? Because I think we started halfway through your story. So we
Sure.
started at, okay, you started baking. But I want to take it back to where you grew up, how you started baking, and then the transition, like, because really, casino and baking seems very different to me. I don't know. It could just be a me thing. But I want to know how you
Are there not cake shops in
navigated.
every casino? Is that
And
not a thing?
were you not baking the poker table? I don't know. Is that a term? Is that like so
Nice
take us
try.
thank you. Take it's been a long day.
That's
Take
it.
us through that journey a little bit. Like take us back. How
Sure.
did you get into baking? Why was this something that your friend was asking you for? Obviously you were doing it before.
All right.
Yeah.
I I mean, I remember enjoying baking from a very young age, seeing mom in the kitchen and stepping up on a step or a stool beside to watch and the measurements and see what she was doing. But that's just sort of like kid curiosity. I think I don't think that was so
No.
much, oh, I aspire and I want to be a chef or a pastry chef when I grow up. But as I got older, I wanted to be better at having a perfectly round cookie and whatnot. And then I actually I mean, I grew up singing and dancing and acting. That was kind of my thing, doing musical theater. And so I was always around creative people. And one of the performers that I'd worked with, who recently passed, was also an amazing pastry chef, and he did a lot of the professional food styling in town. And we had a cast party at my house, and he brought this cheesecake, and it was like just to die for. Everything, like the way it should look, the way everything. And I was like, I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to bake, a just exquisite cheesecake, even if it's just a New York plain. I just want it to look amazing, taste amazing, like that. And that was kind of what motivated me to want to bake more, but it was really cheesecakes. So,
Oh my
over time,
gosh, you're after my heart. I love cheesecake.
Do you?
I love it.
but I wasn't really I wasn't trying to do layered pastries, and I was just sort of wanting to focus on one thing, and that was really sort of what inspired me to want to bake more. But I really didn't have that same passion until after really my father died. So I mean, yeah, I worked in the casino and I would just bake, when I had a chance, I think. But I kind of moved from the land-based casino to the online world. And when you're working in a land-based casino, you've got staff that are working 24/7, and they're all in different shifts, but they're also they're very regulated, so they only have breaks every hour or so. So you don't really have like a lunch together, and everyone's always at different places at different times. And I left the land-based casino world to go to the online casino world. And here I went from managing a land-based casino to managing an online casino where we're all sitting in an office, and I don't have the same customer contact, but I've got really close contact with my coworkers. And so then I started to bake a little bit more, and I would bring things in, or if it was a birthday, I might bake a cake, that kind of thing. But nothing to the extent of what happened after my father passed. And I think it's just therapeutic. When I bake, I'm somewhere else. I mean, there's very few things that could probably make me happier. I don't need a lot of stimulation. I don't watch TV or anything like that. So, and it's also seeing what you're creating at the same time. So, yeah, that was kind of my journey. It was definitely wasn't planned. I just realized how much I enjoyed it more and more, and I just really couldn't stop. And even to this day,
Sorry, I was going to interrupt because I feel like I'm somewhere else when I bake as well. I feel like I'm in the lowest, furthest depths of hell.
well, we might too.
I always like do this weird thing where I'm like, I watch people when they say like, oh, this brings me so much joy. And I'm like, I don't understand. I just don't know why. I'm baking and gardening, same thing. I'm like, I like eating. Do I want to dig that out of the holes in the ground and the dirt soil? No. What is it? What is it? Tell me what it is. What is it that you're like, oh, I'm going to get flour in my eyes? And
but is it laziness, or is it that you don't really like gardening and baking?
Well, when I have friends who bake the way that you do, darling, why would I ever want to?
Right.
No, but actually, it's funny when you say, like, I get a lot of images when our guests talk. And one of the things I thought was, oh my gosh, I had one of those things where I had like a pretend food set. You know, when you get those, when you're kids and you get these pretend food sets, and all
like
I
a Betty
wanted.
Crocker oven or a
That's
lazy
right.
bake. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lazy bake, isn't that what it was called?
Lazy bake?
Oh, easy. I must have slipped that in there.
I love it. It should have been called Lazy Bake because I didn't even have one of those. I had all these plastic things and all I wanted to do was use them to use my till. I just wanted to use the till to sell these fake things. And my concept was not around, I was like, if I put this in the oven, then the parentals look like they think I'm doing the right thing. And then I can sell it. That is where I gained joy. That and my little Tonka truck thing, piano thing, whatever, Tonka toy, whatever it's called, Fisher Price thing. Anyway, but my point is, you're like, oh, it's this kid curiosity. Whenever people would bake things, I would be like, oh, someone is feeding me food. There would be no other thought.
Did people bake around you a lot, Christina?
Yeah.
Like, did you have
my mother makes the best cheesecake in the world. Like, well, maybe you might now, Craig. I don't know. Mum's listening. We can't say that. That's not true. She makes the best cheesecake for me, and I will fight you.
Right, your mom and I are having a cheesecake off.
Oh my gosh. Oh my god. I will. Yeah, Raquelle will have to fly back specially for that one.
Just so I can taste test. Yes.
But my point is, it's interesting as we talk to people about how they became who they are and what they do. You really gained a lot of joy from the process, I guess.
Definitely. There's a lot of hidden frustration and disappointments as well. I mean, you know, there's a lot to learn, and nobody will tell you everything. There's no tell-all book. It's only through listening to, different people on YouTube, reading the recipes, reading their tips and tricks.
Right.
And you'll only get little sort of snippets because nobody wants to tell you everything. And they might even kind of give you the recipe, but something maybe you just not quite in the right proportions or the measurements.
Scandalous.
Or the temperature, like it depends on the humidity sometimes. It depends on, but you know what I'm sensing?
Yes.
I think you are in pursuit of perfection. Even the way you were saying that cheesecake looked so perfect, and you immediately, even back then, you wanted to be able to make a cheesecake that perfect, both in taste and the way it looks. And I can relate to the quest of perfection.
See, I grew up being an extreme perfectionist. Which, expectations lead to disappointment. And now that I understand that perfect doesn't exist, that settled part of the perfectionist, but the desire for that same outcome hasn't changed, even though you know that, okay, there's something slightly less than whatever is perfect because it doesn't exist. It doesn't really change the desire within you to create the best tasting, best looking product possible.
Yes.
Yeah. And what I've learned, especially through doing, the show, and through that show, I've also gained a family, which is amazing. It doesn't matter if you've got a dessert that you put on a table that looks pretty and fantastic, and you taste it and it doesn't taste as amazing, it's not that pretty. It has to taste as good as it looks.
Yeah. You did say that when I was like, I was in awe of my cake, and Craig was like, stop that, eat it. And then say it. Don't give me one half of it. And then so I did. And I still have a piece of cake. And I have many pieces of cake in my freezer. They freeze so well. Hack, everybody, listen, good cake will freeze. And obviously it depends like on what the type of cake is. But mine was it sea salted caramel or was it toffee and chocolate? I think it was sea salted caramel.
Yep, it was a salted caramel chocolate.
That's right. And it froze beautifully. And you know what I got to do, everybody? I got to not share my cake. Nobody. So I had my cake and I eat it too, is exactly what happened.
Lazy and selfish.
Yes, exactly. I know. I'm just painting such a great picture of myself right now.
And other people just did it all for me.
You know me so well, darling.
Oh,
I mean, you all know me so well now.
Yes.
But this is the thing. Like, you're right. You have to. It's what is inside as well that really counts. And the outside is like gives you that kind of surface level like wow factor, and the inside is like this is like. I mean, honestly, you got to order a cake to know.
It's like a person.
That is a really weird thing to say. That's super creepy. That's super creepy.
Oh, you're talking about how it has to be beautiful on the inside and the outside.
Oh, Christina, you went to the dark side there.
I went to cannibalism. I went straight to cannibalism and was like, Raquelle, we don't eat people. This is
not anymore.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
That's
Not any less.
No. Oh, wait. So tell me, why did you want to go on the Food Network? Why did you want to go on to the Great Chocolate Showdown show?
You know what? That's a great question. I had auditioned a couple of times for the Great Canadian Baking Show. Actually, no, just once. And I had done fairly well in the audition process, and I got to the live bake and whatnot, and they pulled me aside for an interview on camera, like from the rest of the group, and they're like, oh, this is a really good sign. And I think I got pretty close to being on, I think it was the second or the third season of the Great Canadian Baking Show, but I wasn't selected, which was the best thing probably ever, because as soon as I wasn't chosen, I was a little bit, not miffed, but I understood as well. There's so much talent if you look at what people are producing now from these shows. But I wrote a list of 25 things. I'm like, okay, you didn't pick me. I wrote a list of 25 things that I wanted to knock off before the next season. So when I came back to the audition, not only could I come and show them something much more fantastic, I'd also be able to say, hey, I've also done this and this, and they could show them what I'd done. So it was fuel for me when it wasn't rejection, but when I know that I could show them what I could do, it motivated me to want to do more and be more. So I then started posting like cake after pastries and this and that. And lo and behold, I had a casting producer from the Food Network who scouted my Instagram and said, hi, Craig, it's so-and-so from the Food Network. Saw your page. We've got this new show. I think you'd be fantastic for it. Would love if you could send in an application. So I've never done anything so timely and so quick in my life to show them how much I wanted it. I mean, I immediately dropped everything. I recorded a video, I filled out all the paperwork and sent it. And it's quite a process to go through with this Food Network. They want to make sure that they're getting the right people, I would imagine. And actually, I think it was the day that I posted my first wedding cake, they called me and they hadn't finished the process completely, I thought, because I just sent in, they had to do your background check and whatnot. And I got a call from one of the senior executives from the show, and he said, Craig, we haven't had a chance to talk. I just wanted to see how things are going and, get to know you a little bit. I know you've talked to a lot of people in the office. And so he started asking me questions. He said, by the way, Craig, there's a few people here, and they all came on the phone, everybody that I talked to, and he says, we just want to welcome you to the first season of the Chocolate Showdown. And I just was like, what? And they all came on the speakerphone. And that's how I found out. So, yeah, I didn't, why I wanted to be on it, I don't know, because other bakers were doing that, because people were asking me and telling me, online on Facebook, like, you should do this. And a really good friend of mine, Susan, had sent a couple of these to me, and I wasn't ready. And she was the one who suggested that I should. So that kind of was like other people pushing me, you should do this. And honestly, even when I got to the filming for the show, and it's madness when you get there, there's no downtime. But I'm sitting here now with these amazing competitors who really are my family. This is more than 2 years later, and we still speak pretty much daily on WhatsApp. But I was here and I was like, I grew up dancing competitively, competitive sports, but here I am now doing, this is my passion, this is what I love. It's not really something that's rushed, it should be artistic. Why am I here? Why am I competing? And then I was like, I'm competing for this? It felt weird. And I actually had to take time that first night before filming and ask myself, what is the value? Why am I doing this? I don't know, should humans be competing like that? And I actually gave it quite some thought, and I needed to understand what I could gain from this. And so what I did is I wrote a quote for the whole group. And I said something along the lines of, when we enter competition, the value of it is that we push each other, and when we see each other excel, we all grow. And I came in and I wrote this and I put it onto the wall in the green room, and that then became the quotes wall for everybody through the rest of the show. So it was kind of cool how that grew. But if we push each other through competition and we make each other better, then we all grow, we all excel. So that made sense for me.
I love that you did that. I love that you took that time to kind of say, actually, why? Why am I doing this? Why is this important to me? And I think what I'm also hearing is that when for someone, Raquelle and I both grew up very competitive. Sports, dance, for Raquelle anyway, I'm a terrible dancer. But music and, we're both very, we're similar to that. The thing that I found was that putting yourself in a high pressure, high stress situation among other people who are as ambitious as you are creates a very unique community. And it also allows you to be like, okay, here is a situation where there are people who are as hungry as I am. So we get to share and we get to operate. And Raquelle and I use the term fire friends a lot, where these are people who are operating at the same level as you. And it's a place to find those people. And I think that, whether I would never have thought that until you said it, but subconsciously that seems like a thing, it's the same reason I say to people that when they say you can learn everything you need to for music school or theater school online now. And I say, yes, but you can't be surrounded by the same caliber of person as you. When there's a high level of application process, when Raquelle got into her master's, you are choosing to be surrounded by specific levels of performance, dedication, and commitment. And I think that was, I would never have thought that with the Great Chocolate Showdown show, but I think that's exactly what you got. And then you on top of that, enriched it by creating this quotes wall and defining for yourself when you arrived the experience that you would like to collectively have, which is snaps for that.
I think also, just to add on to that, the importance is, it sounds to me, Craig, like baking for you was therapy. It was a moment for you to take time to yourself. So it was almost at first probably a bit of a dissonance going into competition, because it's like competing in meditation for some people, or how I would feel sometimes going into yoga class. Like, I don't necessarily want to compete with people in yoga because it's my moment to relax and chill out. But then you have to switch gears and you have to know why you're there. Then you go to yoga teacher training and you say, okay, I'm here. What am I doing here? What do I want to gain from this? And then you have to dial in your mindset. I don't know if that's how you felt, but that's kind of what I read a little bit.
I think even though I got there and then I understood the value of the competition, I still wasn't really there to compete. Like, that was not my mindset. I think because we knew instantly that, I don't know how they picked these 10 people. I mean, 5 Americans and 5 Canadians, but there was something really, really special. The synergy is just like amazing. We had nicknames for each other in a day. Big Daddy was what they called me. They're like, "Oh, you're gonna be the daddy on the show, and you'll be, popular, and people are gonna like you." And they're like, so I don't. Out of this, we all started popping off names, and they're like Big Daddy. So that's the sort of nickname that they gave me, which I thought was, I guess, appropriate and endearing. So I've sort of taken it on. But even then, I mean, I was more like, I guess, the daddy and sort of taking care of the group. It wasn't about competition. It was about making sure that we all had a great experience and that things were fair. And when somebody needs a voice, I was there for everybody to sort of, so I didn't have my perhaps former and usual killer instinct. It wasn't there. And as much as, I don't think anybody really within the group it was like, I'll lend you my spatula, you can use my oven, yes, I'll help you decorate something, rather than, oh, too bad she's not doing okay. So I think, just the opportunity for us all to be together. We were with each other, not against each other.
How many weeks was it?
In total, which I wasn't there for the totality of the filming, unfortunately. But I guess just over 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's pretty much every day there's something. There's no real downtime.
It's so interesting when like just I'm always fascinated by reality television. I say fascinated. From such a far distance that I don't watch it. But I'm fascinated by the concept of it. But I do think that, when you see those people and it's like, and they're editing it so harshly. They're just like, then this look. And there's someone who was probably standing like a second before, like eating a burger or something, and was like, oh, what is this pickle? And they edit that in. And that person is like, oh, what is this pickle? But really it's like, and someone else is just, I just wonder how much of it is like, and I also know that my older sister, being in entertainment, she was on a show that was a modeling show at one point, and they just really didn't like her because all she would do is stand there going, so they couldn't get any footage of anything other than really boring Raven face, which is one of the most beautiful faces in the world, let's be honest. But she would just be like smiling, just small smile the whole time. And you can't really work with that. So, how much
it's different than resting bitch face, right?
It is different. It's like it's resting smirk face. I don't know. What is it? It's resting like what face?
I mean, when we were at the studio, I mean, we were eating lunch in the Big Brother backyard. I mean, that's the real reality of the reality that we were in. And I think these shows aren't about baking. It's about entertainment. Baking should not be pressured and timed. I mean, come on. And with the camera up your nose, like, no. It should be something that's enjoyed. And I mean, who wants to rush decorating the cake after you spent time getting it so fantastically baked? But that's part of the excitement of the show, and I get that. But it really is way more about entertainment than the baking itself. But I do think that baking, compared to a modeling show, there's a different level of cattiness and attitude, and maybe there's a runway and then there's a cakewalk. It's a little bit different. And I don't think
Runways versus cakewalks.
but I mean, I'm only supposed to say so much, but the show's producers and story team want to drive the entertainment value. So
it is. It's entertainment. Yeah.
When they're after you finished filming a segment, they take you aside and ask you questions, because obviously they can't stop you in the middle of your baking to start asking questions. Well, what are you doing now? So all of that is done after the fact. And of course, they really want to try to drive up the drama. So they ask you, so who do you think is your competition? Who do you think strong? They put all of these questions out. And this wasn't planned, but we all kind of separately said the exact same things to them. Like, look, we're family. We don't talk about each other. And I think that was probably quite difficult. And we basically got to the point where we said, look, stop trying to pit us against each other. We're not doing it. We're not talking about each other. That's not who we are. And they
that.
They respected that, and they actually stopped pushing the drama drive,
That's so cool.
So I think we were,
really cool.
I'm not just saying it because I was in the group, but I think we were a very unique group of people, both on the level that we all interacted and how well we got along, but also in that aspect where it's like, we don't talk about each other. We won't do it. We're family. And they respected that. So, yeah.
I wonder if that, I wonder how much that quote wall that you started had impacted that, when you have someone who is so strong-minded in collaborating, allowing other, like Raquelle and I were just talking about this, about learned behavior. When that theory of, the slapstick, and they did that study, which Raquelle can probably articulate much better than me, when slapstick first started, and they did a study to see that actually the trend was promoting slapstick humor and violent incidents promoted more violent society, and a society that was, normalized it essentially. And when you look at the formula of reality television, there are key decision makers, but there are also people that can shift that tide if enough people subscribe to that same thing.
Sure.
Then we start to say, well, we don't do that. And I think that's the definition of a social movement, to be honest. I'd love to see reality television, de-glamorize trauma, for one. I really dislike that. I have a very big problem with glamorizing trauma and the underdog, mostly because I think that if there are not people who are equipped or have processed that trauma, it is just brutal to bring that up. And two, it's normalizing to society that that's what we find entertaining. And that is not necessary, because different cultures have different styles of humor. And Eddie Izzard is one of my favorite comedians. He doesn't make fun of other people. Yep. He makes fun of history. He makes observations. There are so many different things that can be promoted as more normalized and still entertaining behavior.
I have so many things to say about what you just said. Sorry, Raquelle, I'm probably jumping in on top of you.
It's a branch. You're meant to.
I think when I needed to do some personal growth, and I went and saw a therapist, and we were talking, and I think I was quite catty and sarcastic, at times, just not necessarily in a mean-spirited way, but that's just kind of part of who I was. And then I realized that maybe I wasn't the best citizen of the world. I should be a little bit more connected and in touch with what somebody else might be going through in their day. But she defined sarcasm. And she said in certain cultures, when you actually take down the meaning of the word and you break it, it's basically like the tearing of the flesh. And I was like, that's stuck with me since. And yeah, it's...
I'm so sarcastic, though.
I get that. But I have too, but
I'm a monster.
It has stuck with me.
Yeah.
And I don't think that trauma should be glamorized at all, because a lot of people don't even understand that it exists within them, and that's actually probably the greatest cause of why things aren't going the way they want in their life. So that I totally get. Yeah.
Processing trauma in public is, I find it so unnecessary.
Thing I will say, which kind of took, I mean, I was surprised, but when you're sending in your application for these shows, and once you get to a stage where you're being considered, they have you do a psychiatric evaluation. So we did, I think it was about a 300 question evaluation where, you know, you have to fill it out. And I mean, it's really extreme questions, you know, from thoughts that you might have had, and have you ever, like, just extreme questions that you, yeah, it seemed bizarre at the moment. And then once you're a contender, and I guess you're, you know, actually being considered, you have to do a psychiatric evaluation. So you have an interview with a psychiatrist to talk to you, and they ask questions about everything from how you handle disappointment and rejection and whatnot. And also just trying to figure out more about who your personality is. Now, I would think in some shows, they want contrasting and conflicting personalities so they can make that house more exciting or whatnot. When it comes to baking, I don't really, I'm sure they're looking at different energies and different personalities that might go well or not so well together. But I think more so it's for the understanding of who are you, how fragile are you, can you handle it when social media, you know, starts attacking you and cuts you down. So I do think there was social responsibility to make sure that they are picking people that can handle it and that they have support and whatnot.
Or as far as they can, right? Like,
Yes.
because again, like ultimately, you don't want to get sued for someone who has then suffered a great deal of trauma and potentially put their lives at risk because
Right.
of things that they've gone through, right? That's a huge liability. And I think you also can't really gauge necessarily. Someone could be completely stable and go through an
Right.
experience that traumatizes them. You know, and
I think
puts
they're
them-
getting a lot of contracts signed. I don't think they're
they-
actually worried
I-
about
I will
getting
to-
sued.
Well, I think it's also they don't want the psychopath on the show, right?
But they,
Yeah.
they don't want that, and they also don't like. You can be sued, and if someone doesn't have any money, they can go to town. They can, you can have defamation lawsuits that will go nowhere because you can't. How can you sue someone that has no money? Like, I mean,
Well, also-
you can, but
And it goes the other way as well.
But their
though.
contracts are, you basically, I mean,
You're signing
contracts-
your life away. You're like,
yeah, you're like, I am your bitch.
yeah.
You can edit me the way you want.
Yeah.
You can say what you want. I will do what you ask. Literally,
Yeah.
I had a lawyer review it, and you're basically just saying, "Yep, I'm here. Just
Yeah.
I will do what you want and say." And you can also have me saying, "Look, however you want." They can
Yeah.
edit. They can, like Christina, you were talking about, you know, how they take a moment where they'll splice it together. It's like you basically you agree that that's okay.
There's reality shows that I had friends on, and they literally said that and these are very big reality shows that literally are household names, and I'm not going to say just because I don't want to link
Yeah.
anyone who doesn't want to talk about it, but yeah, they said that they can make your own if you don't have a backup story, a background story
Personas.
that they think is like show worthy enough, they can make up your history story, like your sob story.
100%.
They can make it up, and you have signed a contract saying that you will adhere to the story they've created for you. So I don't think they're worried about lawsuits, honey. I'm just
No.
gonna say they're worried about ratings and money, and they know that their lawyers are bigger and badder than yours. And quite frankly, I think most people are going on those shows acknowledging that can be the case. I think you're right, Craig, that this show that you went on, there was a different tone set. There was a really lucky group of people who jived well, and you guys kind of took control and said, this is what we want with this. Like, this is the experience we want to have, and you kind of took control of that. But if you had one or two people who didn't want that, I guarantee you would have had a different experience.
oh, one person,
Right, breaks that link, and
breaks the link.
Yeah.
You just, you found this incredible team. Like, what a
Yeah.
joy.
They're beautiful and so talented on so many levels.
Oh.
Like I wish I could introduce you to all of them.
oh yeah,
But you know what they do on these shows too, and if you look at I mean, there's a lot of people like how to prep and prepare for your American Idol interview, or and there's what they call couch time, and your story on the couch has to be equally as entertaining as your voice. So if you don't
Right.
have a good sob story or couch time, if you're not interesting, they don't want to do that side take where
Okay.
they go to your home or look at your life
Could
and
you
get the
imagine
perspective.
if we did a Bombshell Brunches reality show, except it was just like just living your best life? And I feel like we can disrupt this
We
norm
are, aren't we?
somehow. We're doing Yeah, but we don't have
I'm living my
tasks.
best life.
You
I
are
think
doing-
we have enough couch time stories, Christina. I
Yeah,
don't
but-
think we are the
but
ones
I don't have-
to make
I'm not
the
like-
happy-go-lucky.
I don't think my couch time would be like, could you imagine what if someone was like, oh, this person said this about you? I'd be like, yeah, I saw that. I was there too. What would be the I don't understand the rest of the question. Like, what am I supposed to do?
No.
Respond
We
back?
had an episode the other day about it would have been the perfect couch time.
But it wasn't exciting. It was not an exciting
It
time.
is exciting. It is
People have to
exciting.
be. People have to
People
want to
are
be
excited
interested in your
about it.
story. Yeah.
Yeah.
People are just interested in my weird faces. This is what I've understood. I'm like, I could say anything in North America, and one, people are like, oh, that accent's so fun. And
Those
then
simple
two,
North Americans. Mm-hmm.
those not simple North Americans. I live here. I'm here now. I'm part of all of you.
Oh yes, and you've
also.
abandoned your accent, haven't you?
Oh, but I totally could if I really wanted to.
See?
I could just talk like this for the rest of the episode. It'd be
Oh,
totally
that's hurting
fine.
me.
It's
inside
hurting you. Yeah, you
my
don't like
organs.
that. No, nobody likes that. Everyone's like, what? Wait, who are you? And
So
I'm
now
like the same
yeah,
person.
She doesn't only not assimilate; she mocks us. Okay, that's fine.
That's not mocking. I'm an actor. What do you think I auditioned in? You know this in musical theatre. I'm not gonna.
No.
I'm not gonna.
Well, at least it wasn't Middle America, so it's okay.
I love the Middle American accent so much. Kate, sidebar, but it is one of my like the deep. I really want to go to the deep south, and I'm not
You
in
might
a.
be my wife.
I love that accent. I think it
You're
is.
my cousin first.
Oh my! But
No,
have you
sorry.
have you seen Brene Brown's accent, like the Texan
Oh.
accent? These beautiful, and even the deep.
But Brene
like,
has, it's what she has because amazing things to say with that accent. It's different.
I don't know. I find
Brene
I love
Brown,
country
oh.
music. I love J-Lo movies.
No,
and
you had
I
me at Brene
love
Brown.
Middle
You
American
just-
accents. I will. So I am not. I have not been. But this is the interesting thing. I haven't been brought up to be taught what those accents mean societally. So all
Or
I
to bake.
hear is, or what?
Of course you have.
No,
of
I
course
haven't.
you have.
No, I haven't.
Oh,
No, I haven't.
internationally, even
Oh,
here,
you
like
think?
we
Oh,
just
okay. Here's the stereotype. You think that everyone in the rest of the world is paying attention to America all the time? Is that what
Well, they
you're
are
about
the
to
center
tell
of the
me?
world, aren't they?
I'm actually saying, like, and I'm saying this from my experience living here in Amsterdam. Literally, I go on the train and people are putting on American accents and they're copying the Tiger King. Like, literally in classes, they're like, these are people who grew up here in Holland or other European countries. Like, we have a lot of people from all different countries across Europe.
Right.
But they're all talking about how they started using Tinder because America was using Tinder and it was the big thing, so that's what was trendy. Like, I'm not saying everyone looks, I'm not American. This is not
Right.
me talking about me.
Yeah.
This is me saying there is a trendiness to Americana. And
But
to
I'm from Hong
say
Kong,
that there
and that was
isn't-
not. I'm telling you, I'm from.
But
Hong
you also grew up in England and Australia and New Zealand.
But
You
what I'm
moved
saying is, I
everywhere.
wasn't. So I guess what I need to clarify is, I'm not societally conditioned by that popular culture, and that might have changed. But like, just to be really clear, in Hong Kong there was one English-speaking radio station. Like, popular culture.
Yeah,
was
Asia is a
not.
whole
It's a whole.
different-
That's what I'm referring to. Is like where I
Even
spent
in advertising, it's like
Yeah.
a whole different world. But you
And
spent
even
a lot of time in other countries.
in New Zealand. No,
Weren't
I
you
didn't.
there for 7 years of your growing up? I thought
In-
you were in Australia for 7 years.
Yeah, 14 to 21. I did not know American pop culture at that time either. I did not. Like, we mocked New Zealanders, and which was hard for me because I was from New Zealand. So I was like, I'm just mocking this is making no sense. But what I'm saying is that the point is that I don't attach. Same with when I moved to England, I was 21, and people were like, and I was like, oh my gosh, the Essex accent is so lovely. And they were like, what? And I was like, I love it. Like, I love the sound of it. And they're like, it's stereotypically like simple. They get made fun of, like all this stuff. And I was like, but I've never heard anything like that. And it's great. And they were like, no, it's not. We don't like this. And I was like, well, you're not.
But you could have picked Liverpool.
I love the Liverpool. I love the Manchurian. I like, you know,
the UK is like a different world in terms of like, no, but it's a different world in terms of like categorization based on how you speak. Like if you speak a certain way with a slight accent of whatever area, and I don't live there, so I don't know it exactly, but I know from friends of mine who do live there, literally like it can cost you the potential job.
It's classist.
They'll be like, we don't, it's so classist.
It's
like
classist.
Very, very, very. I have friends
Definitely
whose
agree.
parents like paid to put them in private school when they hardly had the money because they were like, the number of opportunities you're gonna get just by like elementary school going to these schools and speaking the right way is enough that it's worth it. Like it's crazy.
And you're right. You're so right. I would 100% agree with that. Like we had, and even to the point where this isn't a necessarily classist thing, but I think that it impacted it because when I left theatre school, I wouldn't get seen for film and television because that's theatre school was, again, I studied musical theatre thinking I was studying the Olympics of singing.
Right, like the best.
Yeah, and when people, and then people look down. People look down on musical theatre, and I had no idea. And I was like, why would you do that? These are the most incredibly talented people I have seen. And yes, film actors are very, like, they're incredibly talented, but then it's not glamorized. Musical theatre is not glamorized that same way. It's very, like, showy, and I had no concept.
If you take someone out of musical theater and you just put them into film, they're overacting, they're too big, too much, too loud, right?
That's what they would say. That's what they would think. They thought that I'd walk into audition with jazz hands. Like, not these hands, not like, you know.
I would love to see that.
Here are my jazz hands.
I want to see that. Just Christina, like,
stop being racist.
Jazz handing
could you imagine?
and they don't know, but you've got taps on your shoes.
Oh my gosh.
You're about to break out to a time step.
Yeah. Here's my Louis Vuittons.
I want to. It's happening. I want to take it back a level because you have transitioned quite a bit. So going back, like you were working in the casinos or for the casino industry, I guess, by the end of it, and then you transitioned into baking. But like, how did you transition? Like, did you just wake up, make that cake, and you were like, I quit my job and I'm doing baking now? Like, how did this transition happen? How did you
drop a spatula?
Did you know right away, like, I was going to do this? And so you started immediately, like, setting up your life to be able to do that? Like, because we do have people who want to transition, but they may not necessarily know how. And I'm assuming you were in a pretty lucrative, happy financial stability position working in the industry you were working. So how did you make that decision to go into like an area that you didn't know where you were going to land?
I don't really think that I consciously made that decision.
Okay.
I think subconsciously maybe, but I think it happened ultimately out of desire, but certainly out of circumstance, because I was actually living in Las Vegas up until January of the year that my father had passed away. And I basically ended my job living in Vegas in January, and I had come home. And my dad got very sick in February and died in March. And it all kind of, it worked out amazingly. None of that was obviously planned, but I was home, which was quite wonderful, because trying to get back and forth from Vegas, even though it's very close to Vancouver, those flights are just not easy to navigate on the weekends and whatnot. So I was here, and then I had time, and after my father had passed, I just wanted to spend time with my mom because, 55 years of marriage, best friends, still in love. Um, yeah, I wanted to be here for that. And so I decided to kind of do some Airbnb. And it was a great opportunity for me. So every guest that I had in Airbnb got home baked fresh goods. So that was sort of my ground to sort of start seeing how this would go.
Wait, where did you Airbnb? Did you own a place
Yeah,
in
in Vancouver.
Vancouver? Okay.
Yeah, downtown.
Okay.
So that was like, I didn't plan that, but it just made sense. I had the opportunity to do it. Airbnb was good money. I had some time free. So, and I thought, well, why don't we just slip some, fresh baked banana bread on the pillow when they arrive, or cookies when they leave, or whatnot. And so I became a super host in no time with Airbnb, and that was great for me to do that. But it wasn't really planned. It was just sort of what happened at the time. And then I've just sort of continued baking. I mean, I did some consulting and whatnot in the casino world, but one thing about casinos is it's just not very gratifying. It doesn't matter what you do. I mean, I think for me, to building something that was gratifying, I made sure that I was involved in training and hiring employees, so at least I could see growth and see that I was making a difference with people as they, develop new skills or advance within the industry. But ultimately, when you come home at the end of the day, you don't feel amazing about what you've done. Like, I get paid because there's a reality there, even though a lot of what I did was charity based, so a lot of community groups and whatnot were benefiting from the gaming revenue. There's still that reality, and there's a darker side to it, and so I needed more. Didn't know it was baking, but so I don't really think there was not a conscious decision. And as I started to do more and bake more, and people would give me more feedback, I really understood this is probably something that I really could do. And I want to share that. I want to have more people taste what I can do, I guess.
And you're so nurturing. You're such a caretaker. I can see why you would become a super host so quickly in Airbnb. Like, even if you look at the cake you made, Christina, it wasn't like, oh, okay, I got hired to make this cake, so I'm going to make this cake. It was, I'm going to nurture this human through finding out who they are and then specifically creating this for her. And it sounds like that for the Airbnb as well. Okay, I'm going to curate this experience for people that's going to give them an air of nostalgia with fresh baked goods. And, I can see that you consistently do that with your baking. And even like, we had a bombshell meetup where I was actually in town finally, and we all met up, and that was the first time I got to meet you, and I'd heard so much about you. And literally this
the first thing you did.
This was an outdoor music event, like a brunch music outdoor event, people. And you brought cupcakes. Like, it was the sweetest thing, and you wanted, literally, sweetest thing is a bit of a pun, but anyways, you wanted
good job
thank you. You wanted everyone to be fed, you wanted people to be able to take it home. Like, it was just, you're so nurturing and caring, and I think baking is a fantastic way for you to do that. And it sounds like even in the casino world, you were constantly trying to find these ways to nurture people and to help people grow and become better versions of themselves and happier.
Absolutely, yeah. Why shouldn't we all want to do that and be that? I don't know.
Not everyone's cut from the same cloth, my
No, I
friend.
know.
Raquelle and I just like, nah, you can.
Yeah.
You do it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, what I realized, I think, through life is not about what you get, it's what you give. And so many people don't understand why they're not getting their shit. It's like, well, because maybe you are that dark cloud that you think is following you. There's way more to benefit from giving than waiting to receive. So, yeah. Do good, be good, bake good,
Do good, be good, bake good. I love that.
I just want the dough. Like, I like eating the cookie dough.
Dough
Really?
good. Be good.
I love
Bake
the
good.
dough and the batter. Oh my God.
Oh, butter.
Yeah. Literally, like, I'll make a batch of something, which I pretty much never bake. But anyways, if I do, you're only going to see half of it baked.
You're gonna have nice. Meanwhile, I did try and make cookies one time. I was in a band that I was in. One time, yeah, as an adult, and I made them cookies, and I brought them. And I was at the time in a band called Apocalypse Cow.
No,
you
weren't.
Yeah, oh, I promise you I was. And these older, no, they weren't old, but they were 15 years older than me minimum, or 10. The youngest next member was 10 years older than me. Maybe a little bit more. And so I brought them, and they were all like just the loveliest people. And I said I baked cookies, and they all got really excited. And then I watched their faces, and because my next statement was, I'm not sure what happened to these cookies with the butter, and they're melty. And so people were like, they were picking up these puddles of cookies, and they were like, oh, this one's just kind of not really cooked. This one's and I was like, well, that one over there, I think I put it back in. And they were like, so one of them was like a rock. One of them was like just this melty, like, like a Salvador Dali clock.
They were personalized.
They were personalized by, yes, serendipity, whatever was, the forces that will be, the cookie forces. And they were just these like melty puddles of doom. And they ate them, and every one of them was like, oh yeah, this is really, I'm going to take this home. And I was like, but you only got one cookie, and it's only small. And they were like, oh, this one's enough.
Oh, I have a good one. I have a good bake story. So if you've listened to the last episode before we recorded this one, it was with my mom. And you would know that my mom had me when she was 19, which I'm sure comes with all sorts of trials and tribulations. So she was probably like 25th birthday or something, and royally hungover. And I just thought this was the saddest thing, that she was waking up to like just me, and that she didn't have a cake and all of this stuff. So I decided that I was going
just
to
you?
take
What
her.
do you mean? That's more than enough, isn't it?
Well, my 5 or 6 year old self didn't realize this. And she was sleeping in, so I had to do something. So I thought I would make her a cake. And so I went out, and I couldn't read anything. I didn't read the ingredients. I didn't have like anything. And so I just started like putting together ingredients that I had seen my mom using before when she was baking. And I baked this cake, and it looked pretty good. But speaking of, it has to be good on the inside as well as the outside. I guess I had switched sugar and salt, because they all looked, I was going by looks, I wasn't going by words, and they all looked the same. And I proceeded to be very proud of this cake, and I brought it over to my mom, and she's still laying in bed, very hungover, and I sat there and watched her eat it.
I love that your mother ate it anyway. I'd be like, this is dust. Get out. Get out and come back when you're good at your job.
I'll eat it later, honey. Like, mommy's not feeling well. And I was like, but I made it. I was so happy.
In like the creepiest, like Raquelle way. I can just imagine your eyes getting really big and being like misery.
Yeah.
Like, but I made this for you.
Yeah. Why don't you want to eat it? So that's my terrible baking story. I haven't switched them ever since. So clearly I learned from this.
Have you baked anything ever since?
I have. I'll make some brownies here and there. I'll make some cookies here and there. It's very rare, but like I said, I eat half of it.
Well, we're gonna do. I think we're gonna do a bake off with Craig. I think we need to come find a place, come over, find a place, do a thing, have some friends. Who knows? Maybe one of you in the audience is like, bring me.
Yes.
And we will bake, and then we will in my case, probably either get food poisoning from my own work or eat something that is pretty terrible. Probably one of the worst things that.
No, it's going to be great.
Or it will be something. It will be what it is, and that will be fine.
We're going to have supervision.
Supervision.
Yeah, as if that's going to help me. You think my mother can't even help me. Like I'm a lost cause, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because there will be cake around me that I can just borrow.
Right.
With my face.
It's a good excuse. Like, you don't have to be that parent going and taking their kid to school and bringing baked goods. You just hit the store on the way because you're like, I don't bake. Sorry, honey. You're getting store-bought brownies and they could have nuts in them. Who knows?
Exactly. Yeah. I like this. Craig, thank you so much for spending time.
For a second.
Yes.
I was up late last night, which might have been why I was up early this morning so bright. But I finished the cake last night. I thought I might just kind of share it with you.
Yes! Stop!
Yes.
Oh, you did it!
Oh,
you did it! Oh, you did it!
Oh
my!
There you go.
You have to watch this. Oh my gosh!
Team, this is the clip. Elvin, this is the clip. This is the clip for our social media. This is the one. We're posting it.
I feel like I need to audio describe that. For those of you who are just listening, Craig lifts a double hand-sized Nike-styled leopard print sneaker cake that is about the size of one small kitten that is maybe 7.5 to 8 weeks old. Did I do well? It is very stylish and has black laces and white paneling on the side and the sole. And on the back of the heel, it says fear.
The other shoe, the right shoe, says less.
Do these shoes exist? Or did you make up these shoes?
No, this is an actual pair of... they come in men's and women's.
I want to go buy these shoes. Oh,
I want these shoes.
I got to ask G where these shoes are from.
Yeah.
G.
Fear and less. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'll give you a link to the shoes.
Yes, I want the shoes and the cake. Give me shoes and cake.
Shoes and cake. Shoes and cake. Shoes and cake. Oh my gosh. Well, Craig.
That was quite debate. Sorry, I wouldn't let me go.
No, I'm so glad you didn't let me let you go. Never let us let each other go. Let us never let go. I'll never let go. Oh no.
There's a song there for sure. I
think that'll be the next cake. The cake for Bombshell Brunches. Let us never let us go.
I hope you're all doing okay, Christina.
Oh my gosh, I'll bake it. No one will be able to read the writing anyway. It's fine.
Thank you so much for having me on here.
Oh my gosh.
Awesome. Love it.
I can't wait to do this bake-off. This is so exciting and mortifying,
I'm
really.
so excited.
I'm terrified, but that's fine because
I think your mother should probably just have the best cheesecake.
I'll just bring a cake and be like, I made this.
Yeah, sure you did.
No, it's a bake-off and we're doing it all together and there's going to be drinks. It's going to be a boozy bake-off.
It'll be a boozy bake-off and someone will film it and then we'll feel bad later. But at the time, it'll be great.
We're not going to feel bad. We're going to feel great.
Good job, us. Yes, you're right. Okay, Craig, you can find Craig on Instagram at bakedaddy_. It's just one underscore. So
that's correct.
At bakedaddy_. They're very, very customized and they are by appointment only. So I will say, if you are the type of person who is going to give extraordinarily difficult criteria, then don't contact Craig. Don't do it. On behalf of me, because this is my friend, and I don't want Craig to be trying to make a paper aeroplane out of actual paper that's edible, that's floating on a cloud of nothing, while using all the vanilla cream in the world and all of the double chocolate everything, but make it light and with 0 calories. Don't do that. That's not a fun time. But if you want a cake that is special and that is built with love and created with care and so incredibly thoughtful, then I hope you find find BakeDaddy _ on Instagram and get that cake and eat it too.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you.
Right. Have a wonderful day, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for listening, Bombshells. In order to continue to elevate, subscribe and don't forget to click that little bell so you can get notified every time we have a new badass brunch. Until next time, stay focused, fierce, and fabulous.